Homer led the league in tackles with 85. The deep ball for Darius Prince, and Philadelphia's on the board first.
On the draw, this is Bryson Allen. And Allen weaving his way all the way down to the 22.
10-yard line, 5. Mayfield, dancing all around. Throw it as far as he can throw it. Jump ball coming. Crazy stuff. Not this time.
And you want to be a wide receiver. You're going to have to take a little bit of a hit like that as Brown got him in that shoulder, but watch. Those are teeth.
Do we have a dentist on staff here?
All right, I am joined by a very prominent member of the new Arena Football League heading into the 2024 season, Mr. Travelle Gaines. Travelle, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good, Sam. How are you, man?
Doing great. Very excited to speak with you about some Arena Football League action and get some more answers on this league that a lot of people have questions about going into the new season. So the first question I wanted to ask you that's kind of very basic is when and how did you first get involved with the AFL?
Great question, Sam. And also I want to address what you said. You know, it's funny to see some of the responses on social media. We see them all. Obviously, we don't respond to very much. There is a strategy to everything that we're doing. I think that rolling things out to keep the excitement leading into our first game, April 27th, is our goal. So it's not important to us to just here, this is what we're doing in October, because kind of the luster and the fanfare we think will be gone. And so when you kind of take a look at how we roll things out, every time we put something out, we've received between 50 million and 1.2 billion impressions. So it's a strategy behind it. It's a strategy to how we're doing things. And so I just wanted to be very clear with that. We're not trying to withhold information from any of our fans, because one thing you should know is the Arena Football League has, a 30-year history of just amazing fans. And so leading into how I got involved, I first was contacted by Darren Arbett in early 2021. I've been knowing Darren Arbett since I was in college at San Jose State when he was a legendary coach for the San Jose SaberCats. And Darren Arbett, someone who I've always looked up to. I look at him as a father figure. He's just a incredible human being, arguably the greatest coach in indoor football history. And when he told me that they were looking to bring the AFL back, I wanted to be involved, mainly, honestly, from the sports performance standpoint, because I have a sports performance background, and I train multiple of top athletes, that are in the NFL, MLB, and things like that. And so that's when I first got involved in early 2021. So I've been involved in this new reincarnation since the beginning, and just involved with some very, very, very smart people. I think one thing that was decided and what people have to understand about us, what was decided in the very beginning is keeping the original Arena Football League rules the same. So the Iron Man, the rebounding off the net, the action-packed, nonstop way of playing football is what we really want to honor. And so that was nothing that we never going to touch. And so when we start to put together the collection of people that are involved with the league, almost every single one of us came from a non-indoor football league background. So the difference between what we're doing and what other people are doing, which again, you've never seen myself or Lee Hutton ever bash any other leagues. We're never going to do that. We want to grow and we want to be involved with the greater good of indoor football, with spring league football. So we all came from backgrounds that had nothing to do with indoor football. And so I think that, if you just want to play football, that's great. But we want to be involved with the business of sports. And when you look at what the MLS has done, with what women's soccer is doing, what pickleball is doing, and the evaluation of teams, the evaluation of leagues, and these deals that they're getting, that was what attracted me, and that's what attracted a lot of people that have gotten involved with this league. So again, there aren't a lot of people involved with us that have a traditional, indoor football background, but the ones that are involved, we let them do what they got to do, and we don't touch it. We are not going to ever change the way that grew this amazing fan base. And I love the fans. The fans are great. They're passionate. They're crazy. And we love them. And we want to put together a great product on the field and also a great product to consume. And our biggest thing is making sure how are our fans consuming and engaging in our product. So that's where our focus is at. It's not on, Sam, I'm going to be very clear with you. We've had multiple conversations with multiple team owners and commissioners from other leagues. And some just weren't a fit. Not saying that they were bad owners or good owners, but for our business model and what we wanted to do, they just weren't a fit for our business. And that's how we kind of arrived with some of the owners and the locations that we have. So, yeah.
No, I like that a lot. I mean, I personally have kind of backed the business model after I heard more about it. I think that there's a lot of logic and intelligence behind the way you guys are moving so far. Obviously, there's still a lot of questions that I have as well as everybody else. Because I don't know everything by obviously, but one of the questions I have is how you guys kind of break down that player salary budget. We heard a lot about the $700,000 number for each team. What goes into that? Does that include things like housing, meals, etc., or is that just salaries itself?
So it's funny that people keep focusing on the $700,000 number, where people should be focusing on what the actual number of the base salary is. Okay. Our league minimum for each team is $200,000. That's $1,000 per player, 20 players on the active roster. Okay. Every player in the league will make if you're on the active roster, you will make a minimum of $1,000 a game. Housing is covered. Meals are covered, 3 meals a day. That is not included in your player salary, come out of your salary. Teams can sign players up to $700,000. So if you want a quarterback or some player that's just lights out and you want to pay him $500,000 a year and other players make their $20,000, that's up to the team. Now, one thing that we have done is all of our teams, we let our teams run their team. We can't tell people how to be entrepreneurs. We want entrepreneurs. We want people that are going to think outside the box. We want very creative owners. We want owners that, again, understand football, indoor football, but the business surrounding football. And, I've always seen that $700,000, how they want to, that's not up to the league. That's up to the teams. But what you do have to understand is all of our owners have been vetted. We understand the kind of liquidity they have. We understand the kind of available resources they have. And we understand the kind of creativity that they can have. Do I see any owners in 2024 having a $700,000 payroll? No. Do I see any of our owners in 2024 having a $300,000 payroll? Probably not. But I think that there will be a lot of teams that will be paying their players their $1,000 base salary, then have some incentives built in so people can, make a little more money. But there aren't going to be any teams that I can see that are going to be making, with $700,000 payroll. So I just want to be very clear with that again, because I've seen that number thrown out a lot. That's the max your team can pay. But we don't have any teams at this point that can do that. Again, the way we set up our league is for all teams to be successful and also all teams to be profitable. Okay. So if there is a player that requires more money, we will set up opportunities through different league partners and sponsors to offset those costs. So I want to be very clear off that. It's not, we're not going out there throwing out money. It's not coming from the league. It will be a team by team a scenario, and it has to be approved by the league office. So if you're going to sign a player for whatever contract it is, the funding must be in escrow. We have to see it. We have to understand where it's coming from. One thing about our league, all the players will be paid. All the coaches will be paid. That's one thing that we're not going to mess around with. And that's one thing that is going to be very standard for all of our teams. Again, when we start talking about having players making huge salaries, are having league leading salaries, that money must be available in the team's account to offset or even move forward that contract. But again, none of our teams are anywhere near that budget at this point. But I do like people throwing out that number. It sounds cool.
Hey, it makes perfect sense now that you say it that way. So the minimum is $200,000 for the $1,000 a week.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Including housing, including meals.
Awesome. So that makes perfect sense. When the league was looking for potential owners, I mean, what was the vetting process like at that particular pump?
Sam, I'm glad you asked. We had 318 people or groups apply for teams. We're talking about everybody from multi-billionaires all the way down to there was a kid who was, I think, 18 or 19 years old who worked at Popeye's Chicken. And we vetted out everybody seriously. And I think that there were some owners who had the liquidity and had the money, but just from a business sense, didn't make any sense. And there were some owners who didn't really have the money, but what they wanted to do in their game plan and their projections and how they would run a team made a lot of sense. And so it was up to us to decide, how do we roll out these first 16 teams in 24? Then how do we expand in 25 and beyond? And so it was a very tough process. I think that when we initially came out with our list of markets, that everybody saw back on February 1st, the original 16 markets, we either had an arena in place or we had an owner in place in each of those markets. Now, as things started to progress, whether it was on the owner or whether it was on the arena, almost every time it was on the arena, that's when we decided to either push markets back to 25 or 26, or just move a market from a different location because it didn't make any sense. For example, everybody keeps bringing up California. I live in California. I live in Beverly Hills. I wanted a team in California, but we were warned and told in the very beginning, do not have a team in California because of the workman's comp thing. But we had a great group, a fantastic group out of Bakersfield, California. There was a great arena there, and it just made so much sense to put a team there. But when we really started to dig into the cost associated with workman's comp in California, taxes in California, it didn't make any sense from a business standpoint. So again, when you look at the other indoor teams that are in California, financially, it's tough for them. It's really, really tough. And again, going back to my goal as the CEO of the company, I want to see all of our teams be profitable, all of our owners be profitable. So it was myself and Lee Hutton who made the suggestion to that group to move the team to Arizona. That's how the team ended up in Arizona.
Gotcha. So you're talking about the Arizona Outlaws that'll be coming in 2025?
They're actually the Arizona Bandits.
Sorry about that.
Yes. Yeah, so the Bandits, and again, and to be honest with you, they could have played in 24, but I think that it was just better at that time for them to play in 25 because we're not in a rush. This isn't a 1 year, one trick pony type thing. We're trying to set this league up for decades to come. And so we just thought that it was best for them to play in 25. They have a great arena partnership, a great relationship. Really excited about that ownership group and who's involved, and the arena that we play in, the arena deal they have. Again, it didn't make any sense for me. You got to understand, we do a lot of research. And over the past 2 years, the 21 to 22 season, 22 and 23 season, we watched every single league game. I'm not going to go through all the leagues, but the 3 other leagues at the time. We watched all of their games that we could find. We also looked at their attendance. And if you're playing a game and you're paying $50,000, $60,000 to play in an arena, and you have 1,000 people at your game, that financially doesn't make any sense. So for us, we wanted to look at arenas that made sense, anywhere from 5,000 seat arenas all the way up. But financially, it had to make sense because I don't know how many people are going to get in the games. I don't know. I'm hoping we have great attendance. I'm hoping we sell out, but we want to prepare for the worst. And so having favorable arena deals, that was what was important to us. Again, there were some arenas in some markets that initially they agreed to give us a great deal, But then once they understand our business model and our media contracts and where we're going to be playing at, all of a sudden it's triple the value. Well, we're not going to do that. You know what I mean? We'd rather go to a different arena, control our costs, keep our costs down, and make things more simpler on our owners. At the end of the day, I work for the owners. I work for 16 owners. And my job is to create the best business practices, the best partnerships, and the best methodologies for them to be successful from a financial standpoint. Again, we're not going to have any teams that are ever going to start playing and stop playing. There's not going to be any teams that we're going to have to take over their payroll. There's just not going to be some of those issues that's happened in the past with other indoor leagues. And I get it. I understand. You know, I'm not saying, I'll be very clear. I don't think there is a perfect business model. I think the business model that we want to do is going to attract a certain type of fan and a certain type of owner and a certain type of consumer. We're focused on those fans. If you just want to watch a different style of football, not a problem. Go ahead. We support it. Matter of fact, here goes the other league schedules. But again, we're trying to attract a certain type of fan, a certain type of consumer, and we have attracted a certain type of owner. So to go back to your question, it was tough deciding the 16. That's why you kind of saw some 18 or 20 or 22 or 24, because we have some phenomenal owners with some phenomenal ideas. But ultimately we decided on 16. And I know some markets were very upset at us, and they're still, I get all your mentions. I just don't respond. But I definitely think that, Chicago, not having Chicago in 24, I know some people were upset. There is a reason for that. And I think we'll be happy when they understand why. They're going to play in 2025. I think not having Arizona, people were upset. They'll be back in 25. St. Louis, they'll have a team in 25. So I think there are some markets that will come online that people will be very happy about. But unfortunately, sorry to get their hopes up. It wasn't our fault. You know what I mean? It had nothing whatsoever to do out of our control. So I want to be very clear on that.
100%. I actually spoke with 2-0 Clark, one of the owners with the Chicago Rush, and he said it didn't sit right. He wasn't ready yet. So
there you go.
He wanted to do things the correct way, which I take a lot of respect from. I honestly think that's the correct way to approach this. You do it the right way, or you don't do it at all, or you push it off and make sure you can set yourself up for success. But you speak about 2025 expansion. You mentioned Chicago, St. Louis, and Arizona. I mean, I'm not real good at math here, but that's an odd amount of teams. So Let's talk about some potential markets that might be coming in 2025. I mean, what about a team in Ohio, Cleveland Gladiators, perhaps?
So yes, there will be 2 teams eventually in Ohio. There will be one in Cleveland. Cleveland is a phenomenal sports town. It's a phenomenal indoor football town. Not sure if they'll be called the Gladiators. You got to talk to Dan Gilbert about that. But there will be a team in Cleveland. There will be a team in Southern Ohio as well, too. There will be a team in Colorado eventually, Denver to be exact. St. Louis, Milwaukee, Central Florida, the Tampa area, Chicago, Arizona. I think, again, it comes down to having the right arena partners, which most of those teams already have their partnership. We're still trying to figure out Tampa right now, the Central Florida area, and Colorado. We're trying to figure out those last 2 kind of markets. The other ones are pretty set with their arenas, but we are trying to figure out those markets. We would love to also do Austin. We do like Austin. The problem with Austin, just to be very clear, we wanted to bring the Austin Wranglers back in 24, but just the 2 arena options they had there, quite frankly, just didn't work out. One arena with their anchor tenant being a minor league ice hockey team, part of their agreement is they had to keep those dates available to June, like I think it was June 24th or June 25th, for the potential of the team playing in the playoffs. And so it kind of took over our time during our season. So that arena didn't work. And then the other option there, the field wouldn't fit. And so again, we wanted to be in Austin, and we still want to be in Austin. Austin's also a great sports town, and there's not a professional team there. So Austin's a team that, a city we like. I love Louisville too. Louisville is a city I would love to eventually get to. I don't ever see us going past 24 teams. So I don't know if we'll get there, but Louisville is a town I like a lot. Las Vegas is a town that Lee Hutton likes. I'm be honest with you. I'm not a big Vegas guy. But we will have a presence in Vegas, as you will probably see in the next few weeks with certain things. But it all comes down to the business. For us, everything comes down to business and what makes sense. If we have the right arena partner, which is very clear, we don't want to be treated as just a tenant. We have to have the right arena partner. The financials have to make sense, and then and then the right ownership group. So it's kind of it's those two things weigh in on how we're going to move forward with those markets.
I like that a lot.
I'm just being myself, cool as can be. When I'm being myself, you wish you were me.
It's so easy. Get out your own way.
It's just so easy.
So obviously one of the big questions, I mean, you said you've seen all the things on social media. One of the big questions that's come out recently since the Minnesota Myth were announced is the fact that Deanna Hutton is the owner of the team. Obviously, some people have some concerns about the potential, I guess you could say, I don't even know how to put that. I mean, cheating, I guess, that could be involved with the fact that the commissioner is, married to the owner of the team. Could you have anything to address that? I mean, I almost think it's a ridiculous question.
Yeah, I mean, not a problem. I mean, let's just be honest with you. There has been multiple commissioners in multiple leagues over the years that owned multiple teams. So that's, I mean, let's just be quite frank. I don't think that there will be, I don't know what special treatment she could get. Because at the end of the day, her team has to go out and play football. You know what I mean? Her team has to play football. Coach Foggy has to coach the team. The players got to go out there and deliver. So I don't know what kind of treatment she could get. Lee Hutton is not a referee. He does not call games. We don't select the referees. We're not involved with that process. That's a Mike McCoy job. There's not really a way how the league can tilt things in her favor to actually win a game. Also, with the league having sports betting, Lee's taking that stuff extremely serious. So there would be no possible way to have any cheating or any shenanigans going on because you have to deal with other type of issues. And so, it's a ridiculous question. Again, I like it. I'm going to be very clear. I love Arena Football League fans. They are great. They've kept the conversation going. Honestly, you don't hear anything else about any of the leagues. We're always the topic of discussion, whether it's good or bad. Everybody has an opinion, and we respect everybody's opinion. But, to wrap this question up, I don't possibly see how Deanna Hutton, how she can be given how there could be an advantage. I just don't know. Again, you still got to go and play the football game. The team has to be coached, and the referees have to referee. I don't know. She has 5 home games like everybody else. There's nothing that could be done. She has to go sign players. She's treated like everybody else. It's a tough league, and we have some very savvy owners and some very savvy coaches.
100%. Actually, that's one of the things that I wanted to touch on in this interview. Was it ever a discussion amongst the league owners to hire coaches that have ties to the areas that these teams are being launched in?
Absolutely. That was the thing that I really want to push, because I think in some of the markets that we're in, they are very football crazed markets that have a lot of talent, and they have really good coaches. I'm not saying that all of our markets aren't great football markets, but there's some. When you start looking at Orlando, Georgia, Louisiana, those markets, the Louisiana team can literally fill their team with people on the I-10 freeway. So having a coach from the area that understands that market and having a staff that understands that market was important. In Georgia, again, Atlanta, a lot of great football players come out of Atlanta, a lot of great football players come out of Orlando. So I think there are some of those markets with having ties to the area. Chuck Jones, he's been in Portland for, I think, the last 20, 30 years. He knows that area. He knows that market. So I think for us, having an ownership group that was tied to the area and also having coaches that understood the area, and by the way, trying to attract players from that area was something that we were pretty adamant on. As we want to build this, we want to be very professional. We're going to be professional in a lot of things that we're going to do. from a league standpoint, but the atmosphere we want to create is this college game day type environment. So by having a lot of the local talent, whether it's from they were born there, went to high school there, went to college there, that brings in something for the fans in that area to root for and to be attracted to.
Absolutely. I like that idea a lot. We saw that with the Alliance of American Football. I thought it found quite a bit of success because you kind of find a little bit of a fan base there already tied to the guys that came out of the colleges that are in those areas. Another question that came up last night in our kind of network group chat, a shout out to Chris Vias who came up with this one. Is there any talk of having a draft for the AFL, whether this year or next?
Yes, we will have, as we announce our media partners, which will be coming out pretty soon, we will have a draft probably in 2025. The reason why we aren't going to have one in 24, to be quite frank with you, most of our rosters are already filled. Come on, Sam, you do a great job of checking out the rosters. Most of our rosters already have 20, 25 guys. And so I think it wouldn't be fair to a lot of the players if we had a draft in 24, something that I really was pushing for. But in 25, we are looking to have a draft. And I think it's going to make a lot of sense from a content standpoint, probably a 3-round draft where each team, gets 3 picks and kind of go from there. And it probably will be in March, after the players that are invited to the NFL Combine, after they kind of receive their combine invites, we'll probably do like a draft in March. And so they can kind of just get right to their markets and kind of go from there.
Gotcha. I like that a lot. So we've heard a lot about incentives for players. Are there any limits from the league in particular that on what they can incentivize for the players?
No, not at all. I think again, every contract is approved by Lee Hutton. And I haven't seen anything crazy yet. I think that what we wanted to do was make sure that our standard pay was, on par to be higher than most of the leagues. And I think when it comes to incentives, it's really a case-by-case thing. Again, as long as the owner can afford it, we're not going over the 700,000 threshold. You can do whatever you want. We're not micromanagers. There are rules. There are bylaws. There are player contracts that are standard. There are things that are in place. But how you decide and how creative you want to be with signing your players, that's really up to you. Again, we want very entrepreneurial, forward-thinking owners. And so it's up to them on how they want to sign their players, how they want to incentivize their players. We don't get involved with that. We don't. If somebody wants to pay a player $20,000 per catch, that's up to them. I think it's not a good idea. But if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. We're not going to slap their hand with that.
So that more or less answers my next question. There's no cap on how much a player can be played as long as it's underneath that 700,000 max.
Correct.
Interesting. That could open up some very interesting potentials of players.
But also, it's 2 things. You still got to manage your roster, right? So you can attract some players that probably have NFL experience, but if you have one player in your team making 500,000 and other players making 20,000, that's going to cause some issues. So it still comes down to team continuity. It still comes down to making sure that everybody feel like they're treating fair. And so that's something that's really important that all of our owners are aware of. So I think that, again, and there's been a lot of rumors out there. I have personally not seen any contracts fly across the desk that are just, this player is making, I haven't seen any of that stuff yet. I just have not. Again, a lot of rumors get spreaded about the Arena Football League, and that's fine. You know what I mean? And but I haven't seen anything that's crazy.
I was gonna say I've heard some interesting ones across the off season, but nothing that's come to fruition yet. So we'll see how things go on that. But one of the big concerns, as I'm sure you've heard, has been how the league will handle workman's comp. Obviously, that's always a big issue. You mentioned it with California being an issue. One of the concerns was in particular Albany. I know they've had some issues in the past with workman's comp and the expenses it would cost to play or to practice in Albany. So how is the league going about approaching that in particular?
Yeah, so that would be a Lee Hutton question. But to be quite frank with you, obviously, if you saw the announcement for Albany, they had state senators there. They had the mayor of Albany. They have it all worked out and figured out. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so from a legal standpoint, Lee Hutton deals with all that stuff. And that's why you kind of saw the back and forth with Albany in the beginning. They're going to come in. They're not going to come in. They're going to come in. But until they got their workman's comp situation settled, I will tell you this: they're not paying nowhere near what they've paid in the past. It was a collective. It was a collective done by the city of Albany, the Senate's up there. They got a lot of people in the state of New York. Bob up there at the MVP Arena. They had phenomenal people involved. The state wanted that team back. The state wanted that team playing in the Arena Football League. And so there was a lot of people involved to get them to the number that they wanted, they felt comfortable with, to pay that cost up front. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I was not involved with those conversations. I am overly overwhelmed with other stuff. But I think if you ever have Lee Hutton, if you could ever wrestle him down, he can go in more into detail with that.
Oh, I have every intention of getting Hutton on here at some point. I have to figure out how to make that happen. But
he's a lot more talkative than me. I think this is the only interview I've ever done, and probably, quite frankly, will do. I just don't. It's not me. We're like Penn and Teller, man. I like doing the background work. He likes doing the talking. I'm not in all this stuff.
Gotcha. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us in particular. I mean, I'm not quite sure why you chose Shady Sports Network, but we'll take it for sure.
Well, you do a great job. And to be very clear with you, all of the people that report on indoor football do a great job. I just think that you, for some reason, you're like the Adam Schefter, you're like the Adrian Wojnarowski of indoor football. I don't know how you get this information, but you always break all this information. And I just sit back like, wow, this guy's good. So, and I owe Tim an interview as well too. I can't think there's others. Obviously, a lot of people have reached out, but yourself and Tim have been just phenomenal. And so that's why I'm here. I made it work with my schedule. Just so you're very clear, I'm up every day between 2:30 and 3:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, I'm doing something. So there's never any downtime. So that's why it was tough trying to schedule the interview, because it's sandwiched right now in between two Zoom calls.
100% completely understand that. And definitely appreciate that once again. I never expected to hear that from somebody like you. So thank you. I appreciate that. And Tim Capper, he takes the cake. I honestly think he's the greatest, but I'm just living in his shadow at this particular moment.
Tim's the man. That's my Canadian guy.
Yeah, definitely. And, shout out to his Montreal Alouettes that just won the Grey Cup championship, by the way.
Awesome.
Throw that in there for him. So obviously Commissioner Hutton recently mentioned some attempts to quote unquote sabotage the AFL's relaunch. Can you shed more light on these challenges that have kind of popped up as of late?
I really want to say they weren't challenges. I think that, it's at the end of the day, man, it's competition, right? There's been people in other leagues that have called arenas and tried to sabotage or get dates or block, it's stuff like that. I mean, we're aware of it. Fortunately, a lot of the arenas aren't as loyal to some of these other leagues as they think they are. And so we've gotten their name and things like that. What people have to always understand is Lee Hutton by trade is an attorney, and he's an unbelievable attorney. And so I think sometimes when you're trying to be nefarious or trying to be funny and do some of these things, you're opening yourself up to some situations that you might not be able to get out of. I personally don't care. You know what I mean? Nothing bothers me. You know what I mean? So I don't never say that there were never really challenges per se. Clearly, it hasn't stopped anything from the league. We have arenas, we have arena dates. We're going to play football. We're going to play great football. We have our teams in place. Everything's ready to go. But as far as really challenge, I think the biggest challenge that I've had for myself, from my seat, is really, again, just dealing with kind of the arenas. And honestly, not really a challenge, but, I see all the racist comments, you know what I mean? We've been called everything in the book. But other than that, it is what it is,
Wow. I did not think it would go there.
Yeah. And the funny part is, people have to understand when they put stuff on the internet, there's something called an IP address that's attached to everything. We know where these comments are coming from, and they're coming from, unfortunately, other owners of teams in other leagues. So we know who are saying them, and we know who are doing them. So it's like, hey, it is what it is. Cool, whatever. At the end of the day, Sam, I have a very good life. Lee has a very good life. It doesn't really bother us. You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
Hey, shout out to you guys for being the bigger people on that. I mean, that's got to be tough to deal with. That should, if you want to, say something about the AFL, it needs to be stuck to football. directly, or the business side of things. That should not go anything past that, in my
But Sam,
perspective.
let me ask you this question. What can you say about us from the business side of things? Because what you got to understand is we are making attempts to make the league and our team owners have more resources to be successful. I can't say that for other leagues. I can't say that. I just can't. Now, granted, I'm not into what they're doing. I'm not in between their meetings, but we are making attempts to make things easier for each of our teams and each of our team owners. And so, from the business side of it, let's just cut it down to it. We're just talking about playing football, right? Our team is going to play football. Now, are we very ambitious on things that we want to do with our teams, with our markets, with our league? Absolutely. Is everything going to work? Probably not. But we will try our hardest to make sure everything does work because, again, you have a lot of very creative, forward-thinking, and smart people. And that's just what it is, you know? And so I just want to be very clear on that. So it's like you can't say anything about our business practices because all of our business practices are to the greater good of our teams. We're not trying to take fees away from our teams. We're not trying to charge them and absorb it. We're not doing things that will put our teams in bad financial situations. Everything that we're doing is to help out and cover costs and offset costs for our teams. So that's what we're very clear on. There's no shady, no pun intended, there's no shady business practices going on to harm our teams. Everything that we're doing is for the greater good to make our teams more successful.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I caught from the announcement of the schedule was that you guys will be playing playoff games in 2025 markets. How did that decision come about? I personally am a huge fan of it. I've heard some critics of it, but I think there's some intelligence behind that.
You know, Sam, I think what we want to do, and again, that's not set totally. There will be a total of 8 postseason games. Okay. What we would love to do is have some games in markets for future teams, whether it's Arizona, whether it's Chicago, whether it's Cleveland, whether it's St. Louis, whether it's Tampa. We want to look at those things very, very carefully, but also we also want to reward those teams that are in first place. So I don't think it'll be fair for Orlando to go 10-0 and then have to go play in Las Vegas for their first round game. But also we do want to appease our fans that are starving for football in some of those markets. So it's a balancing act that we're trying to figure out. And we do have a plan for it. So whether it's the first round games, the second round games, or the actual Arena Bowl and the All-Star game, we will have them in certain select markets. But we also are very aware of some of these arenas and some of these fan bases that do want football. One thing we will be very clear on is all of our playoff games we played in 10,000 plus seat arenas. That's one thing is. So if you automatically look at the arenas that some of our teams are playing in, 5,000 seat arenas, man, if you could pack that out, that's a pretty good day at the office. You know, you're walking away with $300,000, $400,000, based on ticket sales. But for our media partners and what we want to do, we just want to play all of our playoff games in 10,000 plus arenas, and some of our markets don't have those. And so that's why we're looking at alternative sites to play those playoff games at.
Interesting. That makes perfect sense. I would assume that has something to do with the television requirements.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha. So I assume that we also will be getting an announcement very quickly with the television partners.
Yeah, so yes, it will be. Our television partners are going to make the announcement, so we're on their time. We're on some major networks, and so we don't really have and also we're good partners, so we're not going, hey, you better make this announcement tomorrow. I know our fans want it tomorrow, so we will be rolling out and releasing when they're ready to release it with their schedule, our TV schedule. And so that's why when you saw the schedule came out, there weren't any dates. And the reason why there weren't any dates, because there's a flexibility to play on Thursday night, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday night for each game in each market based on what games the television providers want. So I want you guys to be very clear with that. There are dates lined up and there's arena flexibility lined up, but until our television partners select all the games that they want, and we're going to have a flex schedule, weeks 8, 9, and 10, because if you're Louisiana and you're playing Oregon and you guys are both 0-9, we're going to flex that primetime Thursday night game or that Monday night game to Orlando versus West Texas because they're playing for the championship or something like that.
Feels very NFL-esque. I like it. I like it.
The NFL is the best brand out there. It's
Yeah.
the best brand, and it's a league that we look at a lot strongly in how they do things. Not saying we're the NFL or anywhere near the NFL, but the NFL really has captured how to build their fan base, how to build their markets, and how to get a viewership. You're 30 million people are watching their games. That's crazy. And so a lot of things that they do, we've looked at how to do the same thing, even working with a lot of their partners.
Makes perfect sense. I mean, if you want to be the best, you learn from the best. I'm a firm believer in that. So can you talk about any of the digital or technological innovations the AFL will be looking to launch in 2024?
Yeah, in 2024, we will have we have a partnership with Humble Technology. They've been a phenomenal partner for us, very, very cutting edge. I think that Brian Foote is an amazing CEO. He's done a good job there. And again, for our relationship, that's all I could speak on. Our relationship, he's been great. So I think for us, having one platform that can serve as a digital wallet, that you can buy merch, you can buy tickets, you can see stats, you can see highlights, you can see our shows, you can consume our content, and then you can subscribe to our streaming service to also consume themed or branded games every single week that will have a fantasy football and a sports betting focus. That's really what we want to do from the technology space. Now, we will have games that will be streamed and broadcast on other major platforms, but we also have a home base in our app.
I like that. Will these games also be streamed or broadcast on local TV for local markets?
Some of them will. Again, that's something that we are still trying to figure out. Our first thing was to take care of the streaming service and the national broadcast. So from there, now we'll start going down to local markets. But again, anybody can watch our games simply through our app, and that's just what it's going to be. We are taking a very, very, very strong look at how it would look like to consume games in local markets. Our first thought is obviously we want everybody to go to the game in local market, so we don't really want to have it on local broadcasts. But if you're playing in a major market, if you're in Chicago and there's 4 million people there and only 10,000 people get into the arena, it makes sense to have a local TV deal. Where maybe not in Odessa. Odessa, we want everybody to go to the games, but maybe in the Midland or all the way up to Lubbock area, there's some kind of a local TV deal, kind of like the blackout model, kind of like what the NFL does with a lot of their teams. If you're in the immediate area, maybe it's blacked out, but if you're in the surrounding area, it'll be local. But again, the local marketing is something we plan to attack starting this week, actually. But again, the national broadcast and streaming partners was the first thing that we wanted to really get done.
I like it. How does the AFL plan to attract and retain top talent in this market, given all the competition you guys have with the XFL, the USFL, leagues like the IFL, the NAL?
Well, I think it's already happening. I think we've been signing some really good players. Again, we have very good coaches, man, and I just wanted to praise them, man. We have some great coaches, some great GMs, some great coaches / GMs, and we have some great owners. And so it hasn't been very hard to attract talent. We've signed, as you've seen, we've signed people with NFL experience. We've signed people with, I call it the big football field experience. We've signed people from other leagues. And so, again, it comes down to fit and where you want to play. It's been going great. I mean, teams like Orlando, Billings, Albany, West Texas, they're crushing it. Louisiana's made some great signings. Oregon just signed a quarterback. I don't know if he's been announced yet, but that guy he should be in the NFL. You know what I mean? And so, we've been able to attract some really good players because that's what it comes down to is talent. And so having the right talent on the field is very important. And I've been very pleased with the players that the teams have been signing. Again, I'll be very clear. I don't get involved with team by team football operations. I see all the signings. I do my research, and we have some great players in the league and some great personalities too, which I think would be important as we start to roll out a lot of our content. Having some of these personalities on some of our platforms is really important too.
Absolutely. So obviously one last big question I have to ask. You see all the Philadelphia gear behind me.
Yeah.
What is going on with Philadelphia? Are they a travel team for 2024?
So that's the funniest part about the whole thing. I don't know where that ever came from. They have never announced at any point that they were going to be a travel team. Philadelphia is still one thing about Philadelphia, and you can probably see what's going on right now with the 76ers and their hockey team. I can't think of their name right now. There's only one arena in the city of Philadelphia. And so the ownership group there, Mustafa Shakur and the guys there, very savvy, very smart, from Philadelphia. They are just trying to lock down their exact dates and their locations because there's not a lot of inventory in Philadelphia to play arena football games at. There isn't a ton of inventory in the surrounding areas. There are arenas available that are 45 minutes from downtown Philly, whether you're going to New Jersey, whether you're going to Delaware, whether you're going outside to different parts of Pennsylvania, whether you're going down to Atlantic City, but the Soul want to play in Philadelphia. And so there's some things that they are working out with the powers that be in Philadelphia to make sure that the Soul have a presence in the city, and we're being patient with them. And so once they have those dates locked in their exact arena, that's when we announce their home and away schedule. But at no point did anybody in our league ever come out and say, let me phrase that, did myself, Lee Hutton, or Mustafa Shakur, their owner, ever come out and say they're going to be a traveling team. That's never, ever been addressed or talked about.
Thank you for clearing that up, because that is one question that I've had burning at the fingertips, just waiting to ask you, because honestly, I wanted to get that answer. Well, Travelle, I thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. What were you about to say?
Thanks a bunch, Sam.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I know you got a lot to take care of today. Probably, a million other Zoom calls to be on, but definitely appreciate you taking the time out to get on here with me this morning. Super excited to see what else the league has coming going forward, and I am definitely all in on the AFL in 2024 and beyond.
Thank you, Sam. We appreciate your support, and we appreciate all the support, and we appreciate all the comments, negative or positive, because we take everything into consideration, and this is for the fans. We're doing this for the fans, and we want to do it for the fans. Again, people in those markets, be patient. It's coming. You'll be fine. We know Chicago wants a team. We know St. Louis wants a team. We know Cleveland wants a team. We'll be fine. Just have some patience.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thank you again, Mr. Gaines. We appreciate your time. And as always, hit that like button, comment, subscribe. And again, we'll catch you in the next episode.
All right, now.
I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer.